YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with the final NFL offseason plan video where I play GM. This one for the Kansas City Chiefs. There's a playlist full of all 31 of the other teams. Did them all in depth. Free agency cuts, major signings, 7-round mock draft, everything. We'll have you covered with predictions throughout free agency as well. In the NFL Combine, the NFL Draft. We have 2 channels, full NFL coverage. Our new channel, we're going to need you to subscribe to that. Try to help us out here. Match the subscribers on both channels. You'll find a link down below for that, as well as our Twitter, Instagram, daily posts, always talking football, answering any questions on the Twitter, and then we'll have live reactions and talk about the Combine during the Combine on those. So those are must-follows down there. Would really appreciate if you can help us out. And something new going on at the Goat House podcast. You can search that on Spotify. We're live there and hoping to be live soon on Apple, but we're being reviewed currently as of recording this video. So check that out. More to come on that. If you go to our Patreon, you'll find a link in the description for that as well. You'll find podcast in video form, and you'll find extra NFL content specializing at this time of the year in the NFL draft extra content there. But first thing I like to do in this video, this one for the Kansas City Chiefs, kind of evaluate the team. Chiefs are in somewhat, they just won the Super Bowl, so it's hard to say they're in a tough situation, but tough situation with cap because they're going to have to make a decision on Chris Jones, and they want to save some money for future. They could extend now, or they can do it in, next year. But for Patrick Mahomes, the best player in football, who they have to extend and pretty much pay whatever the hell he wants, really. So that's why it's a tough situation. It's always tough when your cap space is spread only amongst a few players, which in the Chiefs' case, I'd say it's okay. It's kind of the one case where it's okay because you have the best player in football. You just won a Super Bowl. And, Chris Jones, I think, is one of the better defensive players in football as well. But looking at the receiver unit, I have a take on Sammy Watkins. That's not going to be too surprising. And then Demarcus Robinson's a free agent, so they actually could look to, like they did last year, add somebody almost like McCole Hardman. So that's interesting. Offensive line, we saw them struggle earlier in the year, and everyone's like, okay, this team needs offensive line. Well, they were injured at that time, and they played an elite level in the playoffs. So in terms of starters, I don't really think they really need anybody that desperately. But because of the cap space situation, they may have to move on from their quality reserves. I think that could put them in the need of depth, important depth at the offensive line position. Looking at tight end, could use somebody else with Travis Kelce. That's a possibility. Matt Moore, do they re-sign him? They could look for, somebody, not so expensive there as a backup. And then running back situation's interesting too, because Damian Williams, during the year, everyone's thinking they need a running back, when then Damian Williams shows up. Kind of like he did last year, and he shows up in the playoffs and the Super Bowl in particular there. So maybe not be the biggest need, but you can get better at that position. You see a lot of free agents throughout here. The defense improved as the season went on. They switched to a 4-3, really improved. Certain players improved. We saw Juan Thornhill really come together, then unfortunately was out for the playoffs. Rashad Breeland was big time in the playoffs, actually the Super Bowl. Kendall Fuller at times, even though he's disappointed at times. So the defense is getting better. Not a whole bunch of money is going to be put at the defense. Some of it already is at Frank Clark, but and then the rest of it, basically what I'm getting to is going to be at the money's going to be at just very few players there, which is again okay in their case here. So going to the cuts, cutting Sammy Watkins. You're at $14 million, not bad really. It's not great for who you need to re-sign and who your quarterback is, but really you just won a Super Bowl and you have positive cap at the moment. It's not bad. So then cutting Sammy Watkins, $14 million, pretty obvious. He's a good player. He had a big Super Bowl. He's somewhat key to this offense, but at the same time, is he really going to make or break your offense? I think he can be replaceable for a lot cheaper. So $14 million there. Alex Okafor, kind of on the fence about this one. They really could keep him around, but thought it was kind of a rental there. They have other guys that are going to step up. I like the way Passanio looked. He could step up further. Breeland Speaks is going to be back. I know they like to move him around a bit. So they have, some depth there. So they could cut him to save the $3 million that they'll need. Daniel Sorensen, he was big in the playoffs for them. He stepped up. Juan Thornhill was out. he made some big plays throughout the playoffs and the Super Bowl. But you're going to have to make some tough cuts to get the cap space up. You're going to be confident Juan Thornhill here. Sorensen, just a quality backup, a guy that could play where you could save money. You need to save this money for we're going to get to why. But then Cameron Irving is a very, very quality backup, stepped in for them. when they had injuries. I think you can trade him. You see, I have traded next to his name, and we can talk about. There's multiple teams I think that would trade for him. Really, $4.6 million is probably too much for the Chiefs because they need cap space for a backup. They would love to have him back, just like Sorensen. They would love to have him back. It's just like Sammy Watkins, but it's just not really how it works. I think he's a lot better than a lot of starting tackles out there. I think somebody would be dying to trade for him. It is an option, so we'll see what they do with that. Do they pick up the option and then trade him? If they do pick up the option, I would look out for that. I would kind of expect a trade here. They could decline it and just save the $4.6 million, but kind of going back, I think that there's a pretty good market out there. I really do. So that's something to keep an eye out for, even though this is really not predictions, but that kind of is one, actually. I think that could be an interesting trade target there. So you're bumping up to $38.8 million, which is it's a big number, but it's really not enough for what you want to do still. And that's why some of these cuts are key. I got to re-sign Chris Jones. He's an elite defensive lineman, still very young. Still, it's scary that it could get better. So I re-signed him, and that's where a lot of your cap is going here. So it's a good amount of it. I'm going to bring Kendall Fuller back because I think it'll be on the cheaper side. It's tough to find those slot corners. And we even seen him play some safety down the stretch of that Super Bowl game and at other times. But yeah, cheaper side. I like Bashard Breeland. I like the way he played in the playoffs. He's very, very physical, kind of the corner that they're looking for. But looking at this draft class, he's replaceable. This draft class, it's not an outstanding draft class, but there's a lot of physical corners like him that could be just as good, actually maybe better, and then be a lot cheaper. So that's why I declined to bring Breeland back and brought Fuller back, even though Breeland's kind of known as the better player probably at this moment. Then Anthony Sherman would be key to get back. Obviously, cheaper deal with the fullback there. So we're letting some guys walk here because we need to save some cap space. Got to keep in mind that future cap also plays a part when signing guys to multi-year deals. And in Patrick Mahomes, you want to be able to pay him what you need to pay him, obviously, in the future. And then we're going to the major signings. A veteran like Jonathan Joseph that's going to sign very cheap to play, to contend, to win, and that could be a possibility there. I won't expect him on the field every single play, but still can play for his age. It'll be cheaper. Adding another veteran that may be looking to win that could be pretty damn cheap. Compared to how much he can produce. Vinny Curry, I think, is still a pretty good pass rusher, but up there in age, could be cheaper if they're looking to bring another veteran. And then adding another guard, I think, would be pretty important. Eric Flowers could be a cheaper option. Had his good moments in Washington, but still not a guy that I really want to plug and play as a starter, but it'd be pretty key for them to get an extra guard that may need to step on the field at times. So you got to go cheap here. I would love to give every team, the big-time players, but because if you don't want to bring Chris Jones back, then you can go somewhat big in free agency, but I don't see why you wouldn't just go big on an elite defensive player that's your own, that's been proven, and that actually could get better. I just don't see the reason why not. And then we go to the 7th-round mock draft. Get a guy like Trevon Diggs at pick 32. There's other corners that, I've been, actually, as we're making these, I've been watching a lot of corner tape, and there's a couple physical ones that I would like for them here. Trevon Diggs would be one of them. An athletic freak on top of that, which is kind of rare, the athletic freak. At the same time, he's pretty good in press, pretty good in man. The only downside, which is kind of a good thing at the same time, is he could be over-aggressive, and sometimes when he gets beat, he'll be over-aggressive and really go a little too much on the press, or kind of overextend his upper body past line of scrimmage just to make the first contact on the receiver. And it's not the worst thing because that's something you can just fix. That's something that's like, I don't think it's programmed. I don't think he's just automatically going to go to that, and a lot of times if he does, lose his momentum, over pursue that, he actually can still catch up, make a play on the ball because he's an athletic playmaker there. So I think they can turn him into something special there. And then adding another interior offensive line, I think could be pretty important. They could be looking for a starter, in the near future. Is a guy like Eric Flowers that person, in this scenario? Probably not, but can play. Matt Hennessy from Temple, who actually has some center experience as well, center and guard. Adding Zach Moss, I think that complements Damian Williams pretty well. Zach Moss, I think it'll be pretty good, short yards, very good in the red zone, can make plays in the open field, despite not having a whole bunch of speed. He does have quickness, and he does have some moves to him. I would like him pairing with Damian Williams. I think they get a lot better there. And then adding a tackle, you probably can't afford, some of the guys you got, like we saw, I made the trade So what I'm getting to is you're going to need depth pretty badly here because guys got hurt last year. You're going to need depth. So Cleveland from Boise State could be an option here. And then Duvernay, which I don't know if he'll be here, but at 159, but in the simulation he was there. More speed at receiver. You're losing Sammy Watkins. You might be losing Demarcus Robinson. You might not be able to pay him. So added some more, another guy that can fit this offense here in the draft. I would like a guy like KJ Hamler for them, really, but wasn't there at the 63rd pick, which I think it possibly could be. He could possibly be, I keep saying it. There's a possibility he can be there at 63 come draft time. That was a guy I was kind of targeting going into this, but it's a simulation where I'm only manually picking for the Chiefs, so he was not on the board. And that might surprise people that can go for another receiver. It doesn't really surprise me, though, because, again, they could lose Sammy Watkins. They could lose Robinson. Always looking to retool that. What's the name of the game for, today's NFL, but the name of the game for the Chiefs? It's passing the ball. It's throwing the ball, and you're going to win with speed there on the outside. So that's something to keep in mind. Good corner class for them, specifically for the Chiefs. I like guys, like Diggs, like Gladney. C.J. Henderson. There's a few guys that fit for the Chiefs there. So in this scenario, that was kind of the better one available there. So, yeah, not a whole bunch of draft picks, not a whole bunch of cap space, but when you got some of that talent that you have coming off the Super Bowl, they'll be in very solid shape still. So we'll see what they do. There's some rumors about the tag and trade on Chris Jones, so I'm curious to see, how that unfolds. You got to keep him. It's a rare talent right there. I think he's an elite defensive lineman talent. Just switching from a 3-4 end to a 4-3 D tackle. I was worried a little bit. I knew he'd be very good, but kind of setting him off a little bit. Throwing off his, the way he's been growing, just switching defenses like that because it's different, and he was still just able to play at that level is pretty ridiculous. So it's a rare talent. So, if they have to tag and trade him, I guess the other team has leverage because he has to be traded. But still, even then, I think they would still get a late first from one of those teams. If he was under contract and traded, I would think, way more than just a first. That's how good I think he is. So. That's something interesting to kind of monitor, but they can make it happen, is what I'm saying here. They can make it happen. They should make it happen. So we'll see. Did this video for every single NFL team. Go check out all those. There's plenty of other NFL content on the channel. And plenty more to come. Got you covered through the combine, through free agency, through the NFL draft, all kinds of predictions coming in the near future for free agency. Go ahead and subscribe to both of our channels. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. Follow our podcast. There's a link in the description in the comments for all of that. Would really appreciate if you can check it out. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.